once again on the air, and we have a tremendous guest this evening. We've had him on the broadcast before. Mr. Nikita Koloff is with us, and my co-host, Mr. John Mosier, of course, riding shotgun as usual. And John has last week we had Lanny Poffo, the genius, on. And John did a huge amount of research, and
I actually just knew it on him.
Oh, you just knew it.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, I've looked up a lot of this stuff because I told you I'm a complete wrestling freak. Not only have I done it, but I'm a total freak for the history and finding out anything and everything I can on the people. So,
well, this week is no exception. We have Nikita Koloff with us, and what's funny is as we started to put the show together this week, John told me, he's like, my Lord, I found all sorts of really strange and cool things out about Nikita Koloff. So,
I'm sure some people found out about him, but it's stuff that not everybody knows. But I mean, a lot of it was from his site. A lot of it was from other little sources I found, but I mean, you're an interesting person in the wrestling world, but you just seem like you're an interesting person all the way around.
Well, listen, just thrilled to be back with you guys, and I appreciate that. Hopefully I can live up to that to some degree, but I don't know about following the genius, man. My work's cut out for me if I got to follow the genius. I'm just saying.
Well, you know, our next week's guest has got to follow you, and that's the Patriot Del Wilkes. So, you know, Dell's got his work cut out for him after we have you on this week.
Well, let's see if I can raise the bar and make it more difficult for Dell. That's my goal.
So John, jump in there. Jump in with your first question here, sir.
Yeah, what'd you find, John? What'd you find?
Well, first funny thing is...
You got me curious, John. You got me curious.
Well, first funny thing is, did you ever think you and a high school teammate, you know, one of your classmates, would end up with a Canadian guy like that and being three Russians?
Well, no, not in a million years. Are you kidding me? I mean, Barry and I didn't even talk about professional wrestling in high school. We were just, man, we were focused on football. Of course, Barry was a tremendous athlete. He played hockey in high school as well. If you can imagine that guy, his size on a pair of ice skates
that would be scary.
Oh my gosh, he reminded you of back in the days when the NHL had what they called the quote the goon on every team.
Yeah.
That was Darso. Darso was the goon. I mean, he towered over every opponent. So, but anyway, yeah, we never ever even talked about pro wrestling back then.
Yeah, I just found it very funny that you, a high school classmate, and a guy from Canada were Russians in the pro wrestling business.
Well, the good news is Ivan, being from Vancouver, was much closer to Russia than we were, being from Minnesota, though. Just so you know.
It's
awesome. Possible some of his ancestors could have migrated across the Alaskan Channel there, whatever they call it.
Okay, another thing. How many times did you end up breaking your legs? It seems like you just had no luck with that.
Dude, it was not pretty, that's for sure. So
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, for the football fan out there, if they remember, you know, what I compare it to is when LT, Lawrence Taylor, broke Joe Theismann's leg.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, if you get a visual of that or are familiar with that. So I predated Joe Theismann, meaning that was the identical fracture my freshman year in college.
Wow.
In a football game. Yeah, and fortunately, I was determined to rehabilitate that from that injury and come back, and I did. And I played 3 more years but before fracturing my other leg in an identical fracture. Well, identical in the sense that they call it compound. and one simple. The difference being when the bones stay inside the skin and when they break through the skin.
Wow.
And the one my senior year, the bone actually projected. It came through the skin. So, yeah, pretty rough. And
Oh, wow.
let me take it one step further. So I had a metal plate taken off of the bone that from the break my senior year, and actually technically got a third break in that I got a hairline fracture through where the screws were in the bone. I suffered a hairline fracture, so you might technically say I've had 3 broken legs.
Jeez.
Yeah, I was wondering because I remember it said in one of the things I was reading where you were in between things. You were waiting for your USFL tryout, and you had worked at you were working as a security at a bar, and one night something happened, and that's when you fractured or had the hairline fracture, and that's how you ended up down with, Road Warrior Hawk down in Georgia for a while.
Animal. Road Warrior Animal.
Sorry, I always say that wrong.
Yeah, no worries. But you have done your homework. That is right. That's it. I was working security, and a drunk guy leg whipped me I unfortunately hit that leg, and it was right after I'd gotten that plate taken off, and that's when I got the hairline fracture, and then I actually had. I don't know if you found this in your homework, but I went back to the doctor who did the surgery my freshman year, and I said, "Hey, this has happened. Here, I'm headed to try and make it in the pro football leagues. What do you suggest?" And he did surgery and put a steel rod down the core of my tibia.
Wow.
That's my next question.
He inserted a steel rod. He goes, "I assure you that leg will never break again after I put this rod in."
Holy smokes.
And he was right.
Oh, goodness.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, didn't you have a problem with your leg in high school, too, or something? Or did I read that wrong? I thought I read something somewhere that you had almost the exact same thing happen. That's the reason I was just amazed.
No, it was, of course, my freshman year in college, my senior year in college. So,
okay.
High school, I was pretty fortunate. I didn't really suffer any injuries that prevented me from playing in high school. So
how the heck did you ever end up being strong enough to squat 500 pounds as a junior high kid?
There's certain things, we're gifted with in different ways. And for me, physically, it's interesting. Like, a lot of guys who weightlift and exercise and stuff, many guys where some would be focused on what you might say getting the beach biceps. You know what I mean by that?
Right.
Guys want big arms, right? And interestingly enough, I loathed doing biceps, and I did them. I worked out, but my biceps were the hardest thing for me to develop. Legs, on the other hand, and the irony is, most guys hate working out their legs. They just want a big upper body. Figure they can camouflage their legs under a pair of pants, right? And so, but I loved squatting, man. I loved working legs, and so junior high school, dude, I was squatting over 500 pounds, doing leg extensions for reps with over 300 pounds. I mean, I ate it up. And of course, let me test your knowledge here with saying all that. Any guess on what muscle part would have been the easiest for me to grow?
I would think doing all that stuff, you would say the quad, but I think it'd be probably more, you might be more towards your hamstrings, the area back there, because almost that's a stabilizer for everything on those.
Well, or
your glutes or whatever you call it there. Sorry.
Right? No. And that's a very educated guess, and that would be a wise answer based on the discussion we were having. So it's kind of a trick question, not really, in a way. So it would have had nothing to do with my lower body. I'll give you a hint. It had to do with my upper body. And if you've ever seen many times what I did in the ring, that's your biggest hints right there. When I would hit a pose.
God, I can't think of the name of it. Right there at the shoulder.
Delts, maybe.
Well, deltoids are the shoulders, but you guys are on track. The track.
That's what's going to be my next one.
I was trying to think of it.
That's going to be my next one.
Yeah. So you want to? So this is even crazier. This is. I mean, I think back on it now, and I'm thinking, how was that? How did I even go? How did I even do that? But my traps were so easy to grow, and for those, you say, dude, your traps are up to your ears, right? I used to do what they call shoulder shrugs, and I am not exaggerating this. Now, I'd have straps on my wrist to hold the bar, but in a power rack, I would do shoulder shrugs for reps with 900 pounds, for real.
Wow.
No kidding. That's how strong my traps were and how easy it was to grow them. It was insane.
Oh, holy moly. I couldn't imagine that.
Wow.
Yep, it was crazy.
I remember, your shoulders, your neck and stuff, even your lats were freaking huge when I first seen you. And it's when they finally merged the two and you would see, all the Crockett talent down on the Superstation finally when they did that, I was just the first time I seen you on there, I was like, holy crud. I mean, you've seen all those other guys, but you just, boom. And I'm like, where did they find this guy? Because you could move around, too. That was the biggest thing. I mean, most of the guys your size were kind of semi-plodding. I mean, they had some speed to them. But, I mean, you moved really good for your size.
Well, I appreciate it. In fact, it's funny you said. Just 2 nights ago, I had a long conversation with Don Kernodle. You know that name?
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Ivan Koloff's partner, World Tag Team Champions. So Don and I, we were having a long conversation the other night. I'm actually going to be doing a speaking at a men's conference and preaching at a church near him, not this coming weekend, but in August.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we were talking, and he brought up that very point. He goes, dude, when I went to Animal, and he's throwing all these quotes out. He's like, Animal, you know any big guys that got muscles like you and wouldn't mind shaving their head and becoming a Russian? and Animal goes, I know the guy right now. But he goes, never in a million years when we had dreamed. When I walked in that door and in that hallway and saw you stand there, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy, he goes, he couldn't even put it in words. He goes, you were more than what we were hoping for, And anyway, he just brought that up 2 nights ago. We were just talking about it, but yeah, I mean, it was right place, right time, and with the right opportunity. That's for sure. Where'd you grow up, John?
Here in Kansas. I grew up here in Kansas. Okay. Grew up around the South Central Wichita area.
Gotcha. Okay. What about James?
Oh, I grew up in McPherson, Kansas, of all places. Yes. It's funny because
it's Bob Geigel land.
Bob Geigel
land.
Well,
that's kind of.
There's a little history there with Bob Geigel. Now, of course, thanks to Bob, I had the opportunity for a shot at the United States Heavyweight Championship with a little angle that Magnum did with Mr. Geigel, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Where you said something. What was it? It was something. You said something about the mother, and then it became like a big hoop-de-doo in that meeting where you guys were supposed to just sign for the one. I think he strung it out to a best of 7 because of that.
Yeah, yeah, the famous, he's some kind of mama's boy.
That's it.
Which kind of triggered him to come over the table, and then of course Geigel strips him of the belt, and he nails Geigel, right, and sucker punches him, and then that of course leads to the best of 7 series. But yeah, you just reminded me of that when you mentioned Bob Geigel. Yep.
That was probably one of the better best of 7s too that was going on. You had stuff like best of 5, best of 3, and things, and people bring up Chris Benoit and Booker T for the TV title, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Those were all good, but the intensity you and TA had with yours, and this isn't me sucking up to you, it was probably one of the best I'd seen, because I was just amazed how you guys kept everybody up like you did. So.
Well, and Terry and I talked just the other day as well. We talk pretty frequently, and we'll do some. We were actually supposed to be in Kentucky doing a road stories, but it got postponed because all this craziness. But yeah, and Terry and I we had such great chemistry because we were both really on the same page in that. We both agreed and said, listen, we got similar styles. We work, what we like to call snug, but some would say we were, especially me, I was a crowbar, but that was just my style. I convinced myself I'm gonna make everybody in that audience believe this is real, even if they don't. But
that's awesome.
So Terry and I had a very similar style. So, hey, I said, look, I'm going to lay it in, so feel free to lay it in on me. I don't think you're going to hurt me unless you hit in the place you're not supposed to. But that said, that was always our goal, he and I, to leave that ring and leave the fans going, wow, that was an intense match. And so I think I say this too, that, sometimes, let's face it, whether it's a movie or a match or something else, sometimes the first one is the best one, right? Even when they try to do a sequel to a movie or, whatever. Not all the time, but most of the time, it's almost like the first one's the best one, right? So I only say that to say, you might have done more research in history than me, but I don't know if there was a best of 7 series prior to Terry and Magnum and I doing that. But at any rate, based on fan response to me, that's the most often mentioned series that I hear about.
Oh yeah, it was off the charts, sir. I mean, it was like I say, the intensity you two had, and the way they built it, and the way you guys kept it built. You just didn't see it. It's like, it was a good skills thing with Benoit and Booker T and theirs, but yours was like, it was just off the chain how you guys kept the intensity up there, and it was like everybody worked on it. Dusty Rhodes, Ivan, Crusher, everybody in that whole thing made that best of 7 series what it was. But you guys together in there were just, it was awesome, because you guys were both big. You were both, strong. Yep. You both had really good body control for your size.
Well, and our agreement to unfold the story the way it did, right? 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, coming down to the 7th and final. And one thing that's interesting about that 7th and final match that was unplanned by me, well, unplanned by any of us, was when fans, when you watch that and the camera's in the corner where I shoved the chain out of the ring.
Yeah.
And how it kind of, right there in front of the camera, how it kind of slithered out of the ring like a snake to where it was unseen, where it could not then be seen by the referee. That was not planned. It wasn't planned for the camera to be right there, and it wasn't planned for the chain just to slither out of the ring like that. So that couldn't have really been more perfect either, the way all of that worked out. Just adding to really the suspense of how we did it, and culminating with that seventh and final match.
Well, I'll tell you, we've got a great guest with us tonight. He joins us live here on the telephone. Nikita Koloff, the Russian Nightmare, and John Mosier with me too as well. And John went out after last week's Genius show. John was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go out and try to research the crap out of this, and I'm gonna try to hit Nikita with stuff that he either hasn't talked about in years or doesn't even remember."
I think Papa was so stunned that I knew half that stuff. Like was it when I told him, I go, was the World Tag Team title reign you had with your father in Detroit the first one, or did you have a title? And he's like, he kind of had this puzzled look on his face, like, how do you know that? You know. It was great. There's a bunch of different ones. I was giving him about, and I was like talking about how his dad booked up in the Maritime Provinces area, and he's like, "You really did know some of this stuff."
Good for you. That's what a good journalist does. Kudos to you for putting that kind of effort in. Good job.
Well,
So,
Nikita, sorry, I was
no.
about the one time you were interviewing him, and I sent you a couple of questions. Like,
Yes.
do you ever think that you were going to have as many people from your high school enter pro wrestling and make it on a national level like they did?
Oh, again, I mean, looking back is just kind of like, wow. I was sharing on an interview recently how, I guess I would say that maybe the next closest thing to that would be West Texas State University, right, with Tully Blanchard, Tino Santana, DiBiase, Stan Hansen. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that came out of West Texas State University, but that's a university, right? A bunch of guys come from different cities. But to have,
in the same
seven
high school.
guys, right? 7 guys, and if you want to get real technical, maybe you found this in your homework, there's actually, all right. Well, before I say this, maybe you've heard say it somewhere before, but how many of us were out of that time frame that we're referring to? How many of us with Darso meaning? How many were in that time frame? Do you know?
If I remember right, I think it was you, Darso, Rick Rude, Tom Zink, John Nord, Brady Boone, Kurt Hennig, and that's all I could. I thought there was somebody else, but that's all I can remember.
Seven is correct, and then there's technically 2 others on Robbinsville High School. Now, I'll give you a hint. Much prior to our graduating classes, but as big or even bigger than we were. Any guesses from either of you?
No, I didn't. Did Joe Laurinaitis or them go there, or did they go to a different one? Because I know you guys were.
Yeah, they were. All the other guys, kind of in that whole era, were all around the city of Minneapolis, if you want to say. But there were 2 other guys from Robbinsville High School. You'll never. I guess maybe you'll never forget this after I give you the answer. But
now, are you talking close to you or like way before you?
Just not in our era, but graduated from Robbinsville High School, but not in our era.
I'm not sure. Was it Greg Gagne?
It was not Greg. Take it another generation.
Oh, was Vern went there?
Vern was a graduate of Robbinsville High School.
Okay.
And
wasn't Jim Brunzell, was it?
No. So I'm going to give you a hint. He did not wrestle, but he's very famous with a microphone.
Oh, Gene.
Mean Gene.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Wow.
How about that?
I was from up there, but I didn't know he went to that high school.
There's a little trivia for you. So.
That's great.
That's wild. That's cool. That's way cool.
Yeah. right? But we would have never. I mean, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, his dad, Larry the Axe, the only thing we knew of professional wrestling. But again, I mean, we weren't talking about it in the locker room. I mean, knew what Kurt's dad did, but nobody really made a big deal out of it. And then, as you said, years later, we all not only end up in profession, but for the most part, the majority of guys, made a pretty decent name for themselves. So. Mm-hmm.
So
Just
what was
amazing.
Joe Nord like in high school? Because he just looks like he'd be kind of a wild man.
What you see is what you get.
Okay, gotcha.
Nord was not fun. I would have qualified him as the berserker in high school as well. He was. I will say that he was fun to be around. He was a joker. I mean, big. I mean, 6'5". I mean, he was big in high school. But he was a crazy one. He sure was.
Oh goodness.
Now, Nikita, you do a lot of work with Luger. You guys do a lot of these camps and men's conferences and speak at churches. Have you ever talked to Luger about the time that he wrestled Bruiser Brody and he just left the cage and he was like, we're done?
It has come up now I can't quote what was said.
Yeah.
But it's been brought up in some conversations before when we've been together. And I guess how I would summarize it is he does not have fond memories of that match.
Well, I can imagine.
Let me say it that way. It's not real fond memories of that match.
I bet that was a rude awakening for his first year and a half in the business and stuff.
Oh yeah. We talk about a berserker. I mean, Brody, I never worked with Brody, but man, you talk about, I guess what you would say, an unorthodox style.
Yes.
Brody would probably qualify, and which is what Nord patterned his career after.
Yes.
So he did. He patterned his
yeah,
career after. Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up because he patterned his career after Brody. Mm-hmm. Kind of the wild look and the boots, the fur boots and stuff. Yeah. Now, I was on tour with Frank. I was on tour with Frank in Japan, but we did not work together. But I was on tour with him.
Now, when you were in high school, if I read it right, you did both sides, both offense, defense, and you played line on defense, and you're also a receiver too.
I did. So my sophomore year, I was actually a place kicker and a punter for the varsity my sophomore year and played wide receiver. And then began to put some weight on, transitioned. By my senior year in high school, I transitioned to tight end and defensive end. So, yeah, I played both ways there. And in college, I wasn't a two-way starter, but I played both offense and defense. I played some defensive end and nose guard in college, but predominantly tight end. I loved catching the football, and that was my passion. And I was a pretty decent blocker too. So I wasn't just the guy, who caught the ball. I could pull some pretty good grades, as I would call it. Our offensive line coach used to grade us every week. He'd watch the game films, and he would, the goal was to be in the high 90 percentile, meaning you missed very few of your blocks. And I will say that I was almost always, if not always, in the 90 percentile, and many times in the upper 90s on execution.
Wow.
Nice. That's way good. Hey, as you when you were wrestling, you had two different sets of unification bouts, and I don't think I've known anybody that had that. Like when you and Wahoo had the unification between the U.S. and the national title, what was it like working with him? Because I heard he was he laid the chops in there, but otherwise he was a pretty easygoing guy in the ring.
Yeah, you knew you were chopped when you wrestled Wahoo. Yes. Which again was because I work snug as well, right? So I'm okay with that, you know, the sense of realism, and but those chops would echo throughout the auditoriums when you wrestled Wahoo, and I feel very fortunate. I mean, here's a storied, legend in wrestling, and you know, from the AWA days to the NWA. I just, you know, to his professional football career. One of the first, and I don't know if you guys know this, when he played in the NFL, you know, I forget how he first got the nickname Wahoo, but the whole football stadium and during NFL games would, you know how everyone does the woo, everyone did the Wahoo. Back in those, like for real.
Yeah,
like
that's
if
great.
you made
Especially
a
with the
tackle or
Jets.
something, yeah, if you made the whole state was like Wahoo, you know. I mean, it was pretty cool. But I say that to say I feel very incredibly fortunate that, you know, he looked at a young guy like me and was willing to put me over in the middle of the ring like that, and you know, for that unification match. And you know, nothing but I never had any difficulties with Wahoo. I just felt he was always great to work with, and certainly honored to be in the ring with such a legend like himself. And so, yeah, that match was special against him.
And then you had your unification with the I don't know if it was NWA or WCW at the time TV title, and you and Terry Taylor, he had the UWF TV title. And I'll be real honest like that. I didn't know how good that match was going to be but you guys worked so well together. I was impressed with how you guys played off each other. I mean, there was some give and take. I mean, you won, of course, but
Yeah.
it was impressive, the overall match, because, you know, there's somewhere it's just kind of like, you know, you get built up, and then it's like, you guys were built up, you know, on TV. And then it was a great match for the unification match.
And I appreciate it. I mean, Terry was he was a very hard worker in the ring, and really perfected his craft. I mean, you know, in some cases he didn't get the credit that he deserves. You know, in some cases, but I feel, I feel like, yeah, even thinking back on that match that night, you know, I don't remember it from opening bell to the final 1, 2, 3, but I do remember how hard we worked and to get that match over, and to tell a story to the crowd, and for them to really, you know, to draw them into the story, and I was told later on, you know, some guys were over busting his chops that I was just going to go out and just eat his lunch and everything, and so I think my understanding, he was a bit nervous when he first got in the ring, but once he saw that somebody was yanking his chain, and that I was there, because my approach to the business from day one, regardless of who I was working with, was what I would call a business mindset. And what I mean by that is, you know, I wasn't all about the hype and the hoopla, as you said, around, as much as I was to give the fan their money's worth, and whatever match I was involved in and whatever the finish was, you know, my hope was that it was going to make sense and would help draw money for the next time around, or, you know, in that town, or just in that angle that I was involved in. And the same with Terry, in working with him, was that my goal was to give the fans their money's worth, and however many matches I would have with him, that you know, that give it my best efforts, and the conclusion would make sense, that if we came back around or went to another town, that you know, the fans would still want to see more.
Now, you kind of got thrown into the mix with, like, little or no training or anything, but you caught on pretty well. When did you finally feel somewhat comfortable on the ring?
Yeah.
Ooh, great question. I mean, really great question. Gosh.
Like, if you want to go a timeline, like, who was you guys were going against? Because you originally came in, and Ivan and Don Kernoodle helped you a lot, and then the other guys started, but then Kernoodle phased out to be an adversary, and then you had Crusher move in, but I mean, it just seemed like you didn't never. There's some guys that get shoved into a spot they're not ready for at first. You seemed like you were ready, but you also seemed like, listening to you and talking to you, you seemed like you were smart enough to know what your limitations were and what you could do really well at the time, and you stuck to that. And as you felt more comfortable with stuff, you seemed like, because it's kind of hard to explain what I'm trying to say here, but I just always wonder, when did you actually feel comfortable? Like, if you went in there, say, and you were going against like Lee Peak or something, or, they had you going against like Ole Anderson. When did you feel comfortable?
Yeah, it really is a great question, and even your insight. As you're speaking, I'm thinking as you're speaking, and I'm just thinking about some of those guys, whether it was an Ole Anderson or a Johnny Weaver. Some may not even know those names. So Rufus R. Freight Train Jones.
I know Rufus from being here in Geigle Land.
Okay. So
he was huge out here.
Yeah, and Dory Funk Jr. I mean, the guys I had the privilege of being in the ring with, where I could feel comfortable. As you asked me the question, when was I comfortable? I mean, within a handful of months, as I was learning the psychology of the business and certainly the mechanics of the business, all on the job. And then once I started having matches with main eventers, like some of the guys I just mentioned, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and other. I mean, all I basically had to do was listen and learn. I'd say it all the time.
Fabulous.
I'm committed to being a lifetime learner, and that's what I did in the ring. Since I had zero background in training prior to, I had determined and made up my mind I was going to learn as quick as I could, everything I could. And the point you made about knowing my limitations is a very valid point. What I mean by that is that, you weren't seeing me doing Jimmy Snuka dives off the top rope, right? Because that was not my style. But secondly, that was not. I just wasn't going to do what I would call higher risk maneuvers that might bring damage to my body. And so some joke that never went off my feet. I went off my feet, but in my mind and by Ivan's and Don's training and some others, it meant more once I did go off my feet than to go off my feet every time I was hit with a punch or something, right? So therefore, part of the strongman image was to rock and get rocked and then bam, like with the Rock and Roll Express, for example, right? A Ricky Morton or Robert Gibson wasn't going to knock me off my feet, but a double drop kick from the two of them would.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. It made more sense that way.
Made more sense. It just made more sense. And so I say all of that to say, I would say once I started working with the main event guys, I became more and more comfortable. Now, that's not to say when I stepped in the ring with Flair at the Great American Bash, there wasn't, a bit of butterflies because there was.
Yeah.
But once again, all I had to do was listen to the champ, the man who was the consummate professional, follow his lead. And the rest, is history, right? So,
Now,
Yeah.
one of the things that, and I don't know if you've heard this or not, but the last couple months, your name has gotten brought up on Arn Anderson's podcast a few times.
Okay.
And
this isn't sounding good, but go ahead.
well, he tells several stories on there about how you used to be in character and in gimmick, and you'd even be on Crockett's plane using the accent. And several times him and several others had to go, "It's just us. You can cut that out."
Well, you guys know the name Mark Merrill, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
What would be his other name for the listeners out there?
Johnny B. Bad.
Johnny B. Bad, yes.
Johnny B. Bad. So I ran into Mark, I don't know, a couple of years ago, maybe, an autograph signing. And to that point, I got to, it was, I have to chuckle because he goes, I got to tell you a story. I'm like, okay. He goes, man, when we first came into the NWA, man, he goes, first thing I got to tell you is, you scared the crap out of me. And I'm one of the boys. And I'm like, that guy looks like he could rip your head off. And he goes, that's the first thing I want to tell you. The second thing I want to tell you is, we'd be in the dressing rooms, you'd be talking with that accent. We go, does he know we're smart? Like, to the business? Does he know we're one of the boys? And he goes, dude, you just didn't break character. He goes, it's amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And so, no apologies. I did what I did. I'm not going to apologize.
No, I think it's great.
Because I feel that's what I needed to do to get the character over. And here we are, how many years later, talking to the Sons of Thunder, James and John, and about my career. So.
Yeah.
You had a heck of a career, too.
You did.
Can you tell the story about the tryout for Rocky IV again? I loved it when I heard it once. Yeah.
No, it was interesting because, Terry Funk actually had a hand in that because he was friends with Sylvester. He was friends with Stallone.
Yeah.
And I think he was in Paradise Alley. I think he's in a couple of his movies already or whatever. And I guess, Stallone just reached out to him and said, hey, we're doing another Rocky, and we're going to have a Russian character. Got any wrestlers? Do you know any wrestlers that, could fit the bill? And he's like, let me make a phone call. So, of course, Terry and Don Cornota were good buddies. And so he called Don. He goes, Don, tell me about this Russian dude that you guys got over there. And he told him the story, Rocky IV, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Don's like, oh, my gosh, he'd be perfect. Terry, believe me, this guy would be perfect for that, right? So they sent me the movie script, and I had about a month in advance. And, every day we're driving, the three of us driving up down the road, man, and I am memorizing these lines I'm like, man, when I go, I'm going to deliver this thing like they've never seen, And so just first-class people. I mean, from the flight out to the limousine at the airport, and hand me a $250 per diem so I could have dinner that night. Right?
Wow.
Like, for real.
That's a car payment to some people.
Dude, I open up, I get to my hotel, they put me up to Beverly Hills Hotel in Hollywood, right? And I opened the envelope, my hotel was like $250 cash. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, what? I guess I'm have dinner or something, And then even the next day, he rolls up with Bridget in his red Corvette, and now you want to talk about, and this is like, I'm telling you the gospel. I never broke character on that set, ever.
Awesome.
I introduced myself to him with the accent. I talked to the director and anybody and everybody else with the accent. I deliver the lines with my accent, and I get in the limousine and depart to the airport, never breaking character.
Wow.
And
protecting the business.
Protect it. Old school, man. Old school. Protect the business.
Total kayfabe.
Yep. And the funniest part of that whole deal, as you said, you've heard it before, but the funniest part of the whole deal is I delivered lines twice, by myself. And he says, hey, he goes, let's do a third one, side by side. Halfway through your lines, turn to me. We'll do a nose-to-nose stare down, like if we were in the ring or something, right? Yeah. And he goes, finish your lines, but let's just do a stare down. I'm like, cool, okay. So we do it. I turn and man, I've got the intense Nikita Koloff look. We literally nose to nose, face to face. They yell cut. He asks how it is, and this is what I'll never forget. The response I heard was, well, it looked really good till you turned towards each other, but then we lost you in his shadow. Now,
wow.
Picture. So, well, before I paint the picture for the listeners, understand this. Two things went through my head immediately. Not good for his ego, not good for my opportunity.
Yeah.
So what happened is, you got a picture. So go look up Nikita in 1985, and you'd see 285 pounds, 8% body fat.
Oh yeah, you were built.
Ways. Right, and then the realistic Stallone, not who you see on the big screen. Now, he was ripped, and he looks big on the big screen, right? In a movie theater.
Isn't he like 5'6", 5'7", or something?
That is correct. 5'6", $160.
Yeah.
160 pounds. So visualize 285, 160. So you can picture in your mind when we turn towards each other the way the studio lights, and we're in a big huge warehouse there in Hollywood. The way the lighting on camera, when you turn certain ways, I literally cast the shadow on it like he did. Like they said, you disappeared in his shadow. We didn't see you. It was like,
jeez.
Oh man, that's probably not good.
Yeah.
And as we know, Dolph Lundgren got the part. But I was thrilled and looked back and just think, what a fun time, what a fun opportunity, even to have a shot at it. At Ivan.
Well, yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah, just being out there. Well, one of the things that I've always wondered, and I never got a chance to ask you this when we did our interview the last time, but you've been around enough of your, I guess, contemporaries that have found religion. Are most of them legitimately, followers of Christ, or is there a couple of them that you've met that you're like, okay, you're just doing this because you've got some problems and you're trying to get good with somebody?
Well, it's a very fair question. It's a really good question. I mean, it really, really is. And in fact, I had a young man ask me that question the other day.
Yeah.
He's a big time wrestling fan, and I'll respond to that question similar to the way really that I responded to him at the foundation. A couple thoughts come to mind as you ask that question.
Yeah.
I mean, at the real core of it, guys, here's the reality. Reality is there's only one who knows the true heart of a person.
Too.
And that's our Creator, right? That's God Himself. He's the only one. He knows your heart, John. He knows your heart, James. He knows Nikita's heart, right? So he's the only one that really knows the true heart and the true motives of an individual, right? Because what we're talking about here is motives. Are some of these guys working religion like they worked wrestling? Is really the way the question you're asking.
Yeah, essentially. Right?
Yeah. And listen, and it's not just wrestlers. Listen, I know people in ministry who are working ministry, and they were never even pro wrestlers. Now, and I say that to say this. I know somebody right away says, "Man, dude, isn't that kind of like you're kind of judging?" But well, in a sense, I am. And in this sense, the Bible says you know them by their fruits, and so it's not who you are in front of a camera or standing on a platform. It's who you are when no one else is around, right?
Yes.
You've heard the definition of integrity, right? And someone who's very ethical it's not about how you handle conduct yourself in a group of people or a bunch of people or a person. It's who you are when you're all by yourself, right? That's true integrity. And are you that same person? So I say that to say, who am I to say, oh, that guy's just working the angle of religion like he worked in wrestling. I don't know. At the end of the day, every single one of us will stand before God and will answer for our motives and for everything we've done. And I can assure you of this, according to the Bible, according to 2 Corinthians 5:10, we'll all give a response for the good and the bad that we did. And then the consequences will be what they may. So that's how really I would answer that question. I try not to really throw anybody, even pro wrestlers who've become, whether it's a minister or involved in some sort of a church thing. The other thing I want to say this too real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time we have left, but I want to say this real quick too, because there is a difference. Let me say this too, for the listeners out there. In my view, there's a difference between, you use the word religion.
Yeah.
And certainly there are a lot of religions out there. Certainly, and Christianity would fall into that category. But I want to unequivocally, I think I said that right. I want to be real crystal clear that for me personally, it is about relationship, not about being religious and meaning.
Yes.
Yeah, meaning for me, it's something that comes from the heart, since we're speaking about the heart, and not just some sort of denominational banner that I might, or something I might wear on a shirt or any of that. It's really about a personal relationship, which is funny we're talking about this, because I was thinking earlier, and I alluded to it. I don't know if you guys picked up on it when I called you guys the Sons of Thunder. If you don't know who I'm talking about, and you might know who I'm talking about. You guys aren't related, are you guys brothers or no? Just friends?
Just friends.
Real good friends.
Just real good friends.
Okay, because I'm just reminded of the sons of Zebedee, James and John from the Bible, who were nicknamed by Jesus the Sons of Thunder. You two remind me of that, man. The Sons of Thunder. There you go. There's your new tag team.
There's the new tag team name. That's right. Now, John, I don't want to I hate to put you on the spot, but John told a story a few months ago when we had some guest on, and this is an amazing story. And I wanted to get you on tonight to have him kind of retell this. So jump in there and tell your angel story there, John.
Okay, a lot of people, don't have beliefs. They, think it's all hoo-ha and stuff. I've always believed, always had a belief. Well, when my dad was, he came down with throat cancer. Well, when he was in hospice, we knew, the doctor came in and told us, hey, it's going to happen in the next 24 hours. Just, not trying to burst your bubble, but we wanted to let you know. And I was like, I like that. So me, my sister, and my brother-in-law at the time, we were all up there. We were going to, be there till the end. Well, anyway, we kind of sat around the bed, and we talked to him and stuff. And, I told him, we finally got my older sister, who's a little bit of a cuckoo clock to a point, who I still love to death, but we told her she needed to go in there and let him know that she loved him and it was all right for him to go, so he didn't have to suffer anymore. We went through the whole thing and stuff. And then we all decided we were just going to try to lie back and try to get a little bit of rest, until, the inevitable happened. Well, anyway, we were up on the 8th floor in the hospice center, and I just couldn't fall asleep at all. And I kind of looked over, and I kid you not, it wasn't from the lights, it wasn't from anything else. But as I looked over there at the bed right next to the window, and this is the God's honest truth, I seen a shadow all of a sudden swoop down towards my dad, and then just a few moments later, swooped right back up. Well, anyway, I was just like, that kind of freaked me out a little bit. I thought, okay, I'm just going to get up, walk, and go to the bathroom real quick. Well, that apparently was them taking my dad up to heaven, because by the time I got to the bathroom, I got a text message from my brother-in-law saying, "Hey, where are you at?" And I told him, I go, "In the bathroom. I'll be right back up there." And he's like, "Well, it's happened. You know, your dad's passed." And I'm just like, it was just such an eerie feeling in a weird way, but I mean, it was also a relieving fear, feeling, because, an angel came down and got him. And anybody that wants to sit there and call me crazy can call me that, but that's the God's honest truth, because he was a good man.
You know what you saw.
Exactly. I mean, it wasn't. Yep. I mean, it was like within moments after that my dad passed.
Yep. You know what you saw, and it doesn't matter what others think. You know what you saw, and you don't have to convince me. Listen, that all through the Bible, there's all kinds of talks of angels, and which is a powerful story. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, you don't have to do any convincing of me. I am full believer that we all have our guardian angels. I believe one day when I'm standing with Jesus, there's going to be so many stories of how the angels protected me from my stupidity that extended my life beyond what it could have been, right?
In the same club.
Whether it's behind the wheel of a car or anything else. But that said, no, dude, I want to say this too, because it's interesting. Because the Bible talks about entertaining angels as well. And so when I first learned of that, I thought, man, you never know. We never know when we might be entertaining an angel. By that meaning, some homeless guy on the street corner, right? That potentially could really be an angel, and how we treat that individual speaks volumes about our heart and who we are as a person, So I appreciate you sharing that story, man. That's incredible. And because it's like when Jesus on the cross, into thy hands I commit thy spirit. So what you're really describing is the holy angels coming down and to meet your dad and bring and his spirit and going with them to heaven, dude. That's powerful. Wow.
Yeah, that is.
Now, on a lighter note, I've got some weird questions for you here in a nice way.
Yes.
To transition.
Okay. Yeah, that was a heck of a segue, wasn't it? Hey. Okay, so how did the Russian Nightmare ever end up being like a bar DJ?
Well, I was a bar DJ prior to becoming a nightmare. Although, then again, maybe I might have been a nightmare for some of those people in the bar. But so a buddy of mine, Brad Leeson, a good friend of mine, was the DJ of this club, and he was working 7 nights a week, and he's like never getting a break, and I said, dude, I go, let me come in and do it a couple nights a week. He goes, for real? I go, yeah, like for real. And he's like, okay, that'd be awesome. And so I did, and I want to tell you, I had a blast doing it. For those who know the term, back in those days we called it spin in the wick, right? Someone go, what's he talking about? Well, that's when you had actual like disc, like 33 RPM albums, people. For those of you who don't know what those are, go Google it. But I did, man. It was like, I loved it. Spinning the wick, man, and just watching people, entertaining them on the dance floor. And I just thought about this. That was really one of my first experiences on speaking on a mic. Because I'd get on the microphone and I'd set up or tee up a song I was doing. And two of my favorites, I'd play like back to back, and the people loved it. Was I think Donna Summer's Working Hard for the Money, I think, and then I just went blank on the artist, but I would tee up that song because everybody's out there working hard for the money, right? And I'd play that song, and I'd go, all right, what do we do after we worked hard for the money? And everyone would scream, We go on a holiday, and there's a big hit back then called Holiday. I can't remember the artist.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
I think it was
but
Madonna.
you know the song I'm talking about, right? You know the song I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I
And
think it was Madonna if I remember right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe. I have to Google that. But the people loved it. I had a blast with it, man. And yeah, it was so much fun. But believe it or not, it was fun.
Yeah, I did that too a little bit. I worked in a lot of bars and nightclub stuff. I usually mostly bartended or worked security, but I would help the main DJ here and there because we both worked out at a radio station together when we went to college there. But the best song for us was Paradise by the Dashboard Lights by Meatloaf, because that would give us enough time to go from the DJ booth all the way to the bathroom, take a whiz, and be able to get back before the song was over. And then you always went right into a couple of slow songs after that because everybody was wore out by it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, so much fun, man. So much.
It's like everybody that worked there knew if we played that song, we were running to the bathroom. So
they already were clued in, huh?
oh yeah, it's like you heard it every night. At a certain point, you look up at it and the DJs are both gone. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Didn't take long to figure it out, right?
So that belt that you ended up, we've got Nikita Koloff with us. That belt that you smashed, was it the U.S. title or whatever? Where did that belt end up?
Yeah.
Did they just throw it in the trash, or did somebody go, "Hey, I want that"? Or because everybody and their brother collects everything now.
I know, and I think back in those days, I don't really know. I didn't think twice about it. I did what I was told to do, and I was in one interview. They go, "Dude, how could you do that?" I mean, because they're a belt lover, right? They're
Oh
like,
yeah.
How could you do that? That
Big
was
belt
beautiful.
mark.
I go, yeah. I'm like, I was just doing what I was told. They're like, oh, okay. But they do ask where I don't know. They probably did just toss it in the trash.
Well, see, that's what I was thinking, because it's like now everything's collectible now. Everybody's got everything. They always ask Flair where the robes are, and he's like, I don't know. I don't care.
I mean, if I had thought about it back then, I would I should keep this. But, you don't think of that. I wasn't thinking of that. I'm like, it's an angle. Is what we're, the other belts, right?
So, yep. John, do you have any final questions before we let Nikita go for the night?
Yeah, I got two of them real quick. Who do you think was the most underrated person in the business when you were wrestling, and how did you ever end up in the AWA at the end there?
Let me go to the AWA first. So the AWA appearances started out through collaboration with the NWA.
Okay.
We were doing we had a big super card in the Meadowlands because we're combining forces to just compete against Vince in those early days of going into his territory, right? And
okay,
so
the Pro Wrestling USA thing.
Yes, and so we thought it would be more star power and drawing power to have both organizations together, and then with Crockett's blessing, and I mainly did TV tapings for them, like when I wrestled Zbyszko for the world title and stuff. I wasn't working for them as much as I was just working with them.
Okay.
Really to try to help them. They were kind of in the waning days of their organization. So I was just trying to be a name on the card for them that would maybe help draw and extend their life a little more, right? So, as far as that goes, man, that's a really good question you asked. Again, yes, some great questions tonight. Who was the most underrated? that I just, you said just kind of in my era, not so much that maybe I worked with, but just my era, right?
Right. Somebody you thought should have got a more of a chance or something. It's like, I think George South could have been big if they just let him do something, because I thought he was awesome in the ring, and he knew how to sell. He knew how to do everything. And I think if he'd ever been given a chance, he could have made something.
Yeah, well, and even his microphone skills. I mean, he developed his microphone skills, and George, George would have certainly qualified. And I already mentioned him earlier, but on a serious, I mean, I know Terry Taylor got a push here and a push there, but not really to the, I feel to the degree of that he could have climbed, into some more main event matches if they had given him more of a chance and an opportunity, because again, he was very talented guy in the ring. I mean, he had the psychology down. He had great ideas. I mean, hence his longevity in the wrestling business, right? Working the WWE school and everything else. He trained, my understanding, I've never talked with Terry about this, but in fact, he had such a mind for the business that he originally trained Goldberg once I left. He was the main guy who trained with Goldberg and kind of patterned because of the matches we had, and Goldberg's look, he kind of patterned that his career, his character off of his experience with me. So, yeah.
That's phenomenal.
That's good. I liked it.
Well, Nikita, as we wrap up here, I know with COVID, you probably don't have a lot of appearances you're making, or are you making appearances?
Well, so here's I'll let you guys in on a little something. So I'm not wrestling appearances now. I got a full calendar. You mentioned Lex and I doing a lot of things together. We do a camp called Man Camp. You can check that out, mancamp.info. And then I do a one-day conference that kind of feeds into the Man Camp called Man Up. I've got 4 of those conferences scheduled for the month of August, as well as preaching all around the Carolinas, and in the month of August. But and then also two major projects I'm working on that people can kind of keep their eyes open for down the road is. I've been working on a second edition or revision, whatever you want to call it, of my last book, Nikita, A Tale of the Ring of Redemption. And William Murdoch, who's worked on the project with me, we've got roughly about 7 new chapters and a lot more pictures, and that we're going to be adding to it. And probably the most exciting part for me, beyond just getting a new revision out, is the final chapter. And I don't know yet for sure what we're going to call it. We're just going to call it Fan Stories, or what we're going to call it. We got a lot of great stories from wrestling fans and people I've met over the years that have just sent in a story that we're going to include in the final chapter. And so
that's fantastic.
Somebody may pick up a copy of the book and see their name or see their story as part of my story, because their story becomes part of my story, right?
That's great.
The other big project I'm working on, and we're in the early stages of this, is there's a network out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina called Truth Radio Network. And the owner of the station came down, spent 3 hours at my house a few weeks ago, and proposed my own weekly radio show.
Wow!
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm learning for you guys as you're grilling me. See, I'm actually learning from you. So,
you don't have to suck up to us either. Don't worry.
You didn't know that, but so I am working on. We put together a sizzle reel. I've done a couple of demos, and I'm in the process of raising advertisers, sponsorships, and advertising for that, because it'll be not only be a radio broadcast, but then it'll be once it airs each week, it'll be uploaded onto all of the major podcasts as well. And so
that's cool.
Super excited.
That's really
about,
cool.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that as well. So fans, just kind of keep your eyes and ears open for that, and of course follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and I appreciate you guys having me on tonight. Sons of Thunder.
I like that. I like that a lot.
This has definitely been fun, and Nikita, I appreciate it, brother, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you, man.
All right, James, John, have a wonderful night. All the listeners out there, have a wonderful weekend coming up, or a week, or whatever suits you. God bless you all. Thank you,
Definitely.
guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And
Thank you, my friend.
And thanks to John Mosier as well. And we have got a great show next week. We have Del Welks, the Patriot, coming on. So that'll be fun. And who knows?